Just come out of executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30, subsection 21A3.
I move that the board authorize the town administrator to work with town council to notify the school district that the town is concerned that the vote to recertify the budget was not conducted at a properly posted meeting, and that the town needs the school board to take a new vote to recertify the budget and reset the time period to hold a special town meeting, and failing a new vote from the school, to authorize the town administrator to file any and all legal actions to protect the town.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing nothing on the motion to authorize the town administrator to act. Discussion? Yes, I'm sorry, John.
Explain what was improper about the posting of the meeting?
I'm sorry?
Can you explain what was improper about the vote that was
I
taken?
believe that we can.
Yeah, 3
Yeah,
locations.
the violation that we may have observed is it has to be posted in both town halls and the online. And it was.
And it was not.
We have reason to believe that it was not posted in accordance with Mass General Law. Any further discussion? On the motion to authorize the town administrator, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, moving on to the agenda. Mr. Terenzini, we've got town administrator update for the regional school district budget request.
So, let me just refer to this
Got
for
it.
the moment real quick.
Okay.
When we were dealing with, back in mid-April, mid-May, I thought I needed to find somewhere 105,000 plus or minus. And I was guided by those things that I laid out for you, an attempt to not backslide, an attempt to protect public safety, not screw around with, accounting fixes, none of that kind of stuff.
105 or 235?
235, 247. The first
Okay.
and easiest fix is on the overlay side of the house. Our budget planning guide says we'll build a budget with 2.5% of a base number for overlay. If during the process we've got some sticky issues, we got some problems, we can come down to 1.5, and that's kind of the floor. So we were up at the 2.5 ceiling, so I was able to take as the first line of resistance with no damage to any departments, roughly 100,000 out of the overlay, and stay consistent with the financial
In 97
policy.
remaining.
So that left me with roughly 105,000, give or take, to cut, which I had found by taking $50,000 from the insurance account. I'll get in a minute what the risk on that is. $47,500 from senior services by reducing their open hours to 30 hours a week. And then a little bit of, 1,000 here, 1,000 there, without really hurting anybody. When we got the new number, I had to find $387,000, or roughly an additional $280,000. And so, here's my suggestion to get to the total that needs to be cut. Selectmen, $11,000, we would reduce town council. What I've tried to do is the department, the amount, exactly what the cut is, what it means, and what the risk is of having to backfill it. if we can cut town council, but at the end of the year, legal services are what they are. It's like snow and ice and veterans benefits and some other things. So there's a high risk you'd have to backfill that. We would reduce the personnel, the interns that we use. It would reduce our attractiveness to interns. It does slow down a number of the projects. I think we've been very successful in moving forward, but there's a very low risk that you'd have to backfill that. The advisory committee, $5,000. I would ask them where they want to do it, but I will tell you that some cut to the reserve would be unavoidable.
Right.
That said, it is more money than last year. The risk
So
of
you're,
having.
I'm sorry, you're saying, but possibly 5,000, but possibly more?
No, I'm saying, would be proposing that we cut that 5,000, and I would say to the advisory committee, where do you want to take that from?
Okay.
Okay? And if they said 5,000 from the reserve fund, then so be it. If they said 700 from Vadar and 200 from here,
I
300
understand.
from here, and
Okay.
400 from the reserve, I wanna leave that to them.
Got it.
I am telling you that a cut to the reserve fund is unavoidable. That said, it would still be more money than they had this year.
I understand.
The town accountant, if we can move everybody to direct deposit so that we can move to electronic read, that means I can eliminate having checks come up here every week, which saves me a courier fee. So if we can get that done, that covers that amount. I spoke with Luann. Basically, we reduced the staffing coverage. We have the part-time person and some floating hours, so we just reduced the amount for the floating hours. The impact is it might impact a little bit her office hours. Treasure collector, I would reduce $37.50. We have $10,000 we set aside for tax title. I would cut that. These are my suggestions. That might impact collection rates a little bit. But if new growth is above where it is, I can put some of the money back on the recap sheet. And new growth will be above where we projected. IT and communications, we simply won't replace PCs on the planned basis, and in the future, they'll have to become part of the capital program. Remember, everything you do that squeezes the budget squeezes free cash, which squeezes capital. You know, these do have ricochet effects down the line. And as you increase the need risk, you might have to backfill accounts or using more free cash to do that. So it all interplays. It's all tied together. Town clerk reduced staffing coverage, again, may modestly impact her open office hours. And I'll give you a warning right now. One of the reasons we're working on this alternative warrant article is we can't have multiple special town meetings. They don't cost a lot, but everyone's $750 roughly. And if you cut her budget and then add special town meetings, you kind of work in both sides against the middle, and it doesn't work well. Now, police dispatch, fire, and highway. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where the money is. And you may say, well, why don't we cut,
$1 million department.
why don't we cut the collector a little bit more? Why don't we cut this a little bit more? When you tally that all up, even if that's the way you decided to go, it's not going to make a dramatic impact on the next couple of numbers. Because even if you save $60,000 by cutting all your small departments, once you distribute it back across the $2.5 million public safety group, police, fire, and highway, it's 2%. It's all it saves them. So we would leave the vacant position off, officer's position vacant. We do run dispatch, 2 people on some of the shifts. We'd have to go to 1. And then there's other things the chief would just have to work out. I will tell you there will be some portions of the day for which there was no coverage except state police, which is fine if they're in Winchendon, but not so good if they're out by the French King Bridge. That's how far west their
Yep, I
district
understand.
goes.
Right.
Pretty scary cut.
Yep. That's,
I'm doing this without, remember, even if you wanted to, you don't have any certified free cash on June 30.
right.
It goes poof.
Right.
And you've been down that road.
Right.
Yep.
I would hope that the community, I know you will not want to do it, but I would hope that the community would not want to re-travel the roads that have gotten them
Right.
in some of this. Fire, we would reduce one firefighter, EMT, and reduce the part-time admin assistant, and reduce multiple repair and supply accounts. That will endanger our relationship with the state. Please remember, we just got an override last year for ALS. It will take longer times for people to get permits because the chief will be backfilling some additional shifts, and he'll be the guy that goes back to trying to complete the ambulance reports and do that stuff. So we'll be paying a well-trained professional. This is important work. I don't want to minimize the admin assistant, but you're going to be paying the fire chief to do what a $15 an hour admin can and should be doing. Development services, we would reduce the staff hours and the on-call inspector. It could result in longer inspection periods because we won't use the on-call inspector. We'll just have to wait till the regular building inspector is available. And I think you've all enjoyed the success we've had with going after green communities, with the cannabis operation. We haven't realized it yet, but I think you see the potential there with the gravel operation, with the Phillipston Fire Study Grant. All of these, with getting, all of these things take time. And as there's less staff time, there will be less time to do those kinds of activities. And some show some immediate results, some are, you know, we're planting the grapevines, you know, to try to enjoy it in 5 years or something, but it's where we see happening. Highway, we have a current vacancy. I'm leaving that open at this point. I'm not filling it until we can settle upon where the budget's gonna land. I can't in good faith hire somebody on July 1 and then lay them off on August 15th. It will also reduce multiple and supply accounts. For instance, we have not had money to go get hot tub the last week. We have to get to July 1. That's how close it is. And there will be more of that. And
Say that again?
you get towards the end of the year and you simply don't have supply, so you're trying to figure out work tasks that you can undertake. Well, you don't have any hot top to fill patch holes. Oh, I see drainage pipe over there. I guess we go do drainage pipe this week, because that's the material we have to work with. And there
You're
will,
saying supply cuts across the board, not specifically just DPW,
no, in highway.
in highway?
Yeah, right
Okay.
straight across the board.
Okay.
And it will
I'm following along. with the
increase
budget.
redlined equipment. If you get towards the end of the year and you need something for a piece of equipment, you'll find it's parked until
Non-mission
July 1.
capable for parts.
Yep. Buildings and grounds, we have the last couple of years done about $29,000 in building projects, things that have been deferred, roofs, replacing rotten doors. I met with the hardware guy today, you know, the new hardware, the new, we have our quote for the new handicap power-activated door at the back. We can reduce that by about 4,000. But all these projects that get deferred, if you defer maintenance, you're gonna pay at some point for deferred maintenance. And please remember, we don't have a good handle on the added, we have to be eating that electric cost as we go along, and we don't have a solid handle on the fuel demands of the new fire station. Strike that.
Police
New
station.
police station, I'm sorry, wrong
I was gonna
service.
say, did I miss something?
No, I did, Julie. Snow and ice, 5,000. We will still have more than we had this past year. Unfortunately, remember, we're switching to a new treatment method, which is gonna cost more, which is gonna increase the deficits. And now we're trying to slow down how much we bring it up. The good news is, it'll still be more than we had last year. So it's on a
Statu-
trajectory.
Statutory.
And it is legal, it lets us stay within the
Right, our statute.
the statutory requirement. Veteran Services, $5,000. This is a statutorily required expense over which we have nominal control. That said, the coming year budget will be bigger than the current year budget, but there is a moderate risk you'd have to backfill that.
That's in,
Veterans.
that's in their 5,700 account?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so, yeah, they've got 92 there, and we'd be able to successfully reduce that
We would
number.
reduce it by 5, which is still more than they had last
I
year.
understand.
And that's kind of like a snow and ice. The difference on this one is, remember, we have a statutory requirement to spend the money with no statutory authority to do it on a deficit basis.
I understand.
Senior services, I would reduce each full-time position in half to part-time. I would reduce the open hours to 30 hours. The Meal on Wheels, I've left fuel and such, but it would either go volunteer or have to be eliminated. And the food pantry would have to go all volunteer or be eliminated. The library, $640. That's not a huge thing. You worked so hard to get that up to 30 hours. And there are some requirements to go with the grant. So that was a modest tick. Recreation
We
and
meet-
culture,
Yep, we meet our, I'm sorry, going back to senior
municipal
services.
appropriation requirement, I'm sorry, which?
Senior services.
Yep.
Under, when we talk Meals on Wheels, food pantry, do we have any statutory obligations with that?
None.
Okay. We just have people
None.
in the community that need it.
We do, there's some issues with it.
Seven to nine.
Yeah, you can proceed.
Insurance and benefits, $50,000. How did I come to that? Well, I start with, remember, we had an assumption that insurance would escalate by 6%. It only escalated 0.34, we talked about. Do we leave it there, hire the consultant, do some other things? Just have that safety valve going forward. The decision was to leave it there, have that safety valve, work with the consultant and the like. But I've gone further and suggested that we reduce the January 1 renewal estimates from 6% to 0.34 as well. You also have to remember, if I cut 50,000 out of insurance, that's not a real cut all the way across the board, because if I don't get a reimbursement from sewer, and I don't get a reimbursement from water, and I don't get a reimbursement from the light department, because we didn't really spend it, I don't have that on the revenue side. So the real net effect here is around $25,000. And the flip side of getting new equipment is at the end of the year, I get you took this piece off, you added this piece, you took this piece off, you added this piece. Please send us $1,360. There's also a risk factor in there. We have a high deductible insurance policy that covers all of our 111F, our police and fire, public safety officers. They're not on workers' comp. They're on a completely different approach. And we have insurance for that, but it's high deductible. So we have to spend $25,000 in a year. So what we do is every year we assume we're gonna spend at least 5. Well, when Gowrie spends that 5, they send me a bill for another 5. And I have to pay it. I don't get to say, well, I'll wait till next year. I always have to have money in the bank. with that third-party administrator. I am not happy with any of these recommendations. I understand fully that the board may have alternate thoughts. I will acknowledge that some of the minor departments could take some deeper cuts. The only thing is, I will tell you that it will start to impact them operationally.
Yep.
And it won't amount to a whole bunch.
Yep.
If you eliminated the part-time person in Luann's office, the part-time person in Carol's office, the part-time person in Laura's office, you're gonna save roughly $45,000. That's it. Which leaves you not a lot to backfeed back up to police and back up to fire and such. But would have some real negative consequences on your ability to properly appraise property and do all those other things. So, we will be bringing you on Wednesday night, at this point, a 2-article warrant. Article 1, at this point, would be for the school's appropriation. Article 2, we haven't really worked out yet completely. What we're looking to do is to try to see if the town meeting will give you the authority to rescind appropriations in the general fund budget that exceed some amount on the school budget, so that whenever the school number lands, you have a number and you can then make those rescissions. That saves us having to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. One of the challenges I will tell you is that we should at least try to have a plan in place, because these numbers are all premised upon the theory that the cuts will start July 1
Right,
and be in effect for the entire year.
right.
The deeper you go into the year,
Yep.
you keep spending. I still have to save, we have to save the same amount of money, but now there are only 11 months or 10 months or 7 weeks
Yeah.
in 1 year to realize that.
So, Mr. Terenzini, on the articles, the first article is the school's number. The second article is a restated the town budget, or a restated contribution. I'm a little,
I don't think we've really worked it out just yet, have we?
I guess it would be an authorization to reduce the town's budget by the corresponding amount that the school's budget is going.
that makes sense. Yep.
So let's say.
With all the work that we just went through, it's basically the effects of that work.
Yes.
Got it.
So
Does
we
everyone else
we
explain?
appropriated, let's say that you were, we appropriated a school budget of some number.
Yeah.
Which was the base number.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might be, the second article might be something like, and I don't remember what the number was, let's call it 6 million.
Right, yeah, I think it's like, 7.
To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to reduce the general fund budget in such amounts and upon such departments as it deems necessary
Yeah.
to reduce it to an amount by which the school budget exceeds $6 million.
Yep.
Something,
It makes perfect sense. That's exactly what I would expect, yep.
we just haven't
I understand.
figured out the math or the mechanism.
That's all right. I mean, you're preparing us for that, and that part makes sense. That's what we're going there for. That's what I would expect, that, Article 1's done, okay. What's my bill?
And what that does is, if the school budget did not pass, and now there's a district meeting, you don't have to have another special town meeting to wait and see what the district meeting does, waiting to know what you need to do. And let's say that district vote passes.
Yeah.
It eliminates that yin and yang back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah. In the sheet that you just gave us, the total of the bad news, or the potential bad news, however we wind up configuring it, is that you propose $414,000 approximately.
Because remember, I lose about 27,500 in revenues. That's my 387. Yes, I've cut 417, but I've lost my revenues. That closes my gap out.
Okay. So again, this is contingency planning based on that 386 number.
And it's the best I've been able to do in, the 2 days.
I mean, that's aggressive. I think the advisory committee meets tomorrow. I would love them to be able to have this discussion. I believe it's on their agenda. I'd like to hear, I'd like to hear from them.
Sure.
I know they're meeting tomorrow. I don't know if you guys knew that. The advisory committee's meeting tomorrow, so if
Oh, I have
we're,
their agenda printed out.
huh?
I got their agenda printed out.
I believe this is on their agenda.
They have, let's see, financial transfers, budget versus actual.
Photographic
and
memory.
it's, yeah.
Yeah,
so
I
plan on
yeah.
going to it, so.
But-
And if there are cuts that the board's been thinking about, or cuts that the board absolutely is opposed to, if I could get those by email, because I'll be
Yep.
in here again next week.
How can we
working on this.
how can we get them a copy of this?
I'll email it out tomorrow morning.
Okay, I'd appreciate
Um,
that.
Yeah, I can email it out in the morning.
It gives them, it's all discussion at this point. It's basically trying to come up with, that contra discussion.
And I need them to understand that it's guided by a couple of principles, not screwing around with the revenues, I mean, might be able to reduce the impact on the fire department. The chief has asked if I would consider recommending taking another $25,000 out of the ambulance received reserved for appropriation. That has other issues down the line. It's all interconnected, and it's like a giant pinball machine. You kind of need to follow where it's
I'm
all
on the
going.
select board now, but I felt very connected to the process. That's why as much as John Capla said, hey, I'd like to hear what they say, I absolutely think the same thing. I want some eyes on it to be able to say, it's not, you've thought of so much, and some of it's deep, some of it is shallow, but I still would love for that committee to exercise its duties to be able to be a part of the discussion. They may come back and say, wow, I can't believe the amount of work that you've done. It looks like it hurts, but at least it puts us in the right direction for being responsible contingency planning wise.
That's the best we could come up with.
Yep.
We've been working on this for a while. and-
Okay. All right. Any questions for the town administrator?
No, just that I wish there was a way that we did not have to cut into, if I could say anything, the only thing that would be in my email is that the cuts to the police and the dispatch and the fire and the fire and the EMS are too deep. They're too deep.
I'll
To have no
continue to
coverage
look at it.
and to jeopardize the relationship with the state. I guess I would like to understand, how that's gonna be going down the road. Maybe am I allowed to have a conversation with the chief?
Absolutely.
Okay, fine. They just seem too deep,
Mr.
and I don't
Chairman.
really know where else to cut. I don't have an answer for that.
We stripped away the parts of the budget you can't cut it all. Debt. Worcester Regional Retirement.
Right, I understand
And we
that.
showed you what the base was.
I'm not saying you could cut anywhere else, I'm just saying those cuts really hurt.
Frankly, after 3 years with you, setting you on what I thought was a good, I was really feeling pretty good.
Yeah, we were on a
And
good
I think you're all
trajectory.
feeling pretty good. They hurt the staff and me as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. And I feel for the staff.
Ms. Richard?
Mr. Chairman, may I just say thank you, Carter, for everything that
Yeah.
you've done? And I'm passionate. We have worked diligently on this board with very little recognition, and we came out of debt under your guidance And now we may go back into debt, and we may be putting citizens that are now building or purchasing $300,000 homes at risk because we can't hold on to the public safety
Right.
departments in the town of Templeton. And that is very unfortunate. So because of someone else's errors, everything we've worked so diligently to build back up and start putting in the bank comes down to this. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
To put it in some perspective, to avoid the cuts that Diane finds most distressing, not to pick on anything, that's $137,000. You would have to shut your library completely.
I know.
And shut your senior center completely in order to offset that cut over. That's the kind of draconian alternative thing.
I understand that.
So.
And I'm not saying that we should do
I'll
that.
say it again, the advisory committee is meeting tomorrow night. They're gonna have this list, in terms of public discourse and otherwise. That would be and I know that there are some members from this board who plan on attending that meeting tomorrow night. This is not the law. We haven't enacted this at all. It's a
Right.
recommendation
I
that
know.
we've asked him for, and I
And he did a good job.
I agree with
He
Julie.
did a great job.
He went deep because we needed to be able
I
to
know.
do that. I thank him for it. It's a tough thing to do, but public discourse, those people that, whether they've been in town a long time or they're looking to move in on, 360 Hubbardston Road, it's the conversation that has to be had. We have to hear about what people are thinking about it. Anything else? Any other questions or comments for Mr. Terenzini?
Shame on the school committee.
Did you have something?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Shame on the school committee.
I
That's what-
appreciate the sharpening of the pencil and the wonderful job that has been done on this. And I also understand.
I'm sorry, could you?
John Thomas Crossroads.
Thank you.
I appreciate the wonderful sharpening of the pencil and the work that was done on this. And I understand that the $980,000 override was overwhelmingly voted down.
Correct.
However, I hate to see certain cuts to the town, and I hate to see us taking a step backwards, and as we talk about the public safety. And I wonder how the board feels about a small override. There's a huge difference between 250,000 and 988, or 137 and 988.
Can I speak up?
And it just seems when
Or
we're
go to the
stuck with so
school.
many
Yeah, let me finish, please.
when we're stuck with
Oh,
so
yeah.
many fixed costs increasing at a rate higher than 2.5%, it's hard to keep our head above water with that limit.
Yeah. So, speaking as the chair, there was an article in the Gardner News, I believe, and it cited the difference, that what's going on with the school, and it cited the difference between what's going on in Phillipston versus what's going on in Templeton. And the issue that they made in this article, or the author, observation was that we have gone through a few overrides within the past few years for other items. And I think the observation of that reporter was that Templeton has become gun shy to an override, and it was defeated by 500. I know I'm not amendable to an override when it was defeated the way it was. It really forces us to go back and, as you say, sharpen the pencil. This board has acted, at least both in discussion and in action tonight, about trying to get to a better place. Maneuvering wise, we're not there yet. We're not to the point where, we're gonna just wash our hands and say, let's all go into the night broken and see what happens. There's still some maneuver room left that I think that we haven't got there. I don't think we've gotten to that point where we can say, we have to go back to the town and go for an override. We're not there. I don't think we're going to be there. And I don't think it would pass, to tell you the truth, John. Mobilization has happened, since I've lived in the community, mobilization has happened for different items. And for this one, I don't know what would happen if a different mobilization effort were to occur. Any other discussion on that before we move to our last agenda item?
Well, the only thing I would say, we could be forced to do that because there is no guarantee that reconsideration of the school budget, you think they might go down or come with the same, they can always go up. Same with the commissioner coming in.
Absolutely.
Same with the district
Yep.
meeting. In 13, we went into the district-wide meeting with a number in hand, and the school committee made a motion to lower it.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying I'm for it, want that to happen or anything, it's gotta be there.
Yep.
Is it always an override, or it could be a debt exclusion where it's a one-time?
No, it can't be.
Debt exclusion pays for the cost of a bond to construct something of a capital nature.
Mr. Chairman,
The
may I
capital exclusion is a one-time vote. This is an annual operating cost. If I can, Mr. Chairman, we actually have nothing for you on the next item, and the school superintendent has indicated he could meet with me shortly.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
On which agenda item?
Anything.
All right, so
I just
what
wanted to-
I'll move,
I have one
well,
thing.
we're in a workshop, but before we adjourn, are there any board member comments?
Yes.
Julie gets to go first.
I would just make
She
the
asked me
comment
first.
of this. On this side of the table and on this committee, I've seen all the diligent, hard work to pick up that pencil and try to make it work. I can't speak for the other committee involved in all of this. I haven't seen it. I'm sorry, my opinion, but I haven't seen it. That's all I had to say.
Diane?
I would like to know if for the next meeting, if Carter and Attorney Harrington could possibly look at how we could remove ourselves from the district agreement.
As an agenda item?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will consider that, and I will work with the town administrator to add that to the next agenda item.
Maybe not if the next agenda is too full,
Yep.
then maybe for the one after that. I
Yep.
would like to see if that's
Yep.
a possibility.
I'll work with the
because-
town administrator to add that to a future agenda.
Thank
item.
you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other further board comments?
I just want to say thank you to Diane and Julie for their passion and all their hard work, sticking it through, and for Carter too, for coming
this was
forward
very
and taking
difficult.
on the town of Templeton.
And Tom, you're in there too, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of adjournment for this evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's gotta be a roll
Aye.
call.
No, I
And
guess
I
we
think
can do aye,
adjournment
right?
is,
I don't know.
yeah,
No.
it's aye.
We can do roll call.
Those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Sure.
Meeting is adjourned.